Back for another edition of talking about some basketball, the Drive and Dish NBA. We are going to get into a lot. There are some Ben Simmons rumors, and everyone knows we're Sixers fans, so we couldn't not talk about that. We also want to talk about the Zion stuff because, again, more setbacks, more headlines that we definitely need to dive into. And we also want to talk about the Pistons, who seem to be struggling a little bit, but the very first topic that we are going to start off with as a warm-up jumper are the Chicago Bulls getting absolutely bodied right now by COVID-19. They are having 2 games postponed as of right now. The NBA announced that earlier today. It's the first games they've had to postpone for COVID-19 this year. They are going to be postponing Tuesday's game against the Raptors. The Raptors are Thursday. They're going to be postponing the Pistons game, which is on Tuesday. The Pistons probably okay with that because they're on like a 12-game losing streak.
Yeah. We'll get into the Pistons at the end of the show. I mean, that was a good chance for them to break it. Honestly, it felt like with the way that the Bulls were looking like they were going to have 8 people. I mean, there were reports coming out that it's like, hey, Caruso's coming back from an injury. Maybe he had a little setback. We should get this game to be canceled. I'm not bitter at all about the league making the Sixers play with like a G League roster last year, but I think if there's anything, I mean, I am glad the games got canceled because this is clearly, Vucevic tweeted, hey, Pistons, you want to play 3-on-3 or something like that? I mean, everybody, it feels like on the roster has it. And it's just that unfortunate reminder that, here we are dealing with COVID still. Like this is, it feels like obviously we're not quite in the situation that we were with the bubble. We're not, in a way out of it where, we're losing guys for games all the time, but this is not the first team this year that's had to deal with it. This is by far the biggest outbreak that we've seen. And like you said, the first time that we've seen games get postponed. But
it makes me feel like, it makes me wonder, like, are they going to look into the Chicago Bulls a little bit and how they're handling COVID protocols within the building? Like, do you think there's some, like, maybe somebody was a little too laxed with the rules a little bit? Because we haven't seen it this bad yet. And I understand like some of this stuff you can't control. So I'm not holding it against them. I'm just saying, if you haven't seen another team have 10 plus players, and what, it's been every 3 days, they've had every day, the past 4 or 5 days, they've had a new player test positive. So it's like, this is still ongoing.
Yeah, they had Alize Johnson test literally today before we recorded this. Yeah. He was the most recent player to test positive on the Bulls. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, obviously the 2 biggest names that are both on the COVID list right now are not playing basketball. I don't think the NBA is going to investigate the Bulls, though, because I don't think the Bulls did anything wrong. I mean, it's a situation where the NBA has mandated vaccines for pretty much everyone that's not a player. They've said 97% of their players are vaccinated. The latest numbers had over 60% of them having the booster shot as well. I just think the COVID is still out here. Like people that are getting it, even with this new Omicron variant, with the Delta variant in the past, like fully vaccinated people are getting it. It's just that it's nice because they're getting it obviously in a much more mild situation. This is, these aren't cases where, knock on wood, people are dying. These are mild cases for the most part, or there's something that they're going to recover from. But I mean, look at Embiid. Embiid said this, he said he was going through it. He was completely out of commission for 2 weeks. Tobias Harris was the same way when the Sixers had their own little mini outbreak at the beginning of this season. This is taking guys like NBA, mind you, again, these are some of the best athletes in the world. This is taking a long time for them to recover from. My advice is, or not really advice, again, I'm not a doctor, but my stance has always been the same. Get the vaccine. Then at least it's hopefully going to be mild like most of the players on the Bulls are. Like, that's the thing. We don't have, Zach LaVine isn't on a respirator. This isn't a situation where they're all being admitted to the hospital. But yeah, I don't think the NBA should have them out here playing games right now. Like, I'm glad the NBA did the right thing and postponed it because, again, I think it was suspect for Adam Silver. Like, you have 8 people on the roster and half the team has COVID and you want to go have them play a basketball game against somebody else and you can potentially spread that then to another roster, a whole other situation.
Well, and that was like with Rudy Gobert when he first tested positive, the very beginning of this whole COVID thing. It was like you could trace him and the Jazz to almost everyone in the league if you went 5 days back. That was it. So it's like, yeah, you do have like kind of a small window where you can't mess this up. And is it worth it that you get to play you get 2 games in? Just move them to the end of the year. It's not that big of a deal. Now, like you were saying, to the recovering part, I mean, technically, as of right now, as of recording this, things can change, I know. But they're set to have, you know, a game against the Lakers, which isn't probably won't be a very easy one. Sunday, December 19th. That should be their first one back unless things change. And then right after that, they play the Rockets on Monday. So they have a Sunday, Monday right back and right out of potentially everybody hopefully getting better from COVID. And then you go Wednesday, December 22nd against the Raptors. And then you got the day after Christmas against the Pacers. So it's not like the Rockets should be a relatively easier game. At least on paper, matchup wise, how that should go. But the Lakers, the Raptors, and the Pacers, and then even the Hawks after that to round out the month, that's not an easy end of the month, especially if you consider the fact that everybody's going to be, kind of trying to recover from a COVID-19 sickness.
Yeah, I guess it depends how everybody's recovering.
Sure.
That schedule honestly doesn't scare me that much, given the way that Chicago is played. I mean, Chicago is one of obviously the bigger success stories so far in the season. They've looked to be every bit as hyped and then some. Granted, they've lost 2 straight, but again, dealing with COVID issues, they're sitting at 17-10 right now. I mean, I think they're objectively better on paper than most of the teams you just mentioned in that stretch. But like you said, for example, Indiana, Toronto, I mean, that alone, Toronto's sitting at 12-14 right now. Indiana's 12-16. Like, they should be beating those teams. Even the Lakers are at 15-13. But like you said, given the uncertainty of COVID, how these guys are recovered, we don't know what their stamina is going to look like when they first get back onto the court. So it does. I think that wild card plays in a little more. I'm sure there are some guys who are going to be fine and be able to integrate back in right away. There's other guys who it may take a little bit. And that's just the unpredictability of COVID, but it's the reminder that it's still a factor this season. It's nice because they're not in a schedule crunch, kind of the way they were last year, having to play off the bubble and taking all that time off. Like, it was a shortened, more compressed season. The NBA has the time, and that's what I hope the NBA does, is that I want them to take their time. And, we don't need a BS product. Like, we don't want to penalize teams for having COVID when literally everyone on earth is getting COVID. So
like you said, they're not the only sport that's going through it. I mean, all of the Detroit Lions essentially tested positive for COVID as well.
The NFL's got it. The NHL's had it, where the New York Islanders recently had to postpone games. I believe one of the Canadian teams just dealt with an outbreak of their own. So, yeah, it's still a thing. Like, again, the vaccine is out there. A lot of people are vaccinated. A lot of people who then have also gotten the illness have a little bit of immunity as well temporarily. So, yes, treatment options, we're in a lot better of a place than we were, towards the end of 2020 as we head into 2022 here now in December. But it's still out there. Like, that's the thing, is just because, it's good that it's not as severe, but we're not completely out of the woods yet, where we're back to a fully regular sports season that isn't impacted a little bit.
Well, and to take it on to the next topic, that's a little more basketball-esque, still not actual game talk, but the reports of interest in Ben Simmons and the trade possibilities, according to Shams, is they're ramping up. And something I was reading is, the rumors are probably going to get even crazier by Wednesday, December 15th, because that is when free agents who sign deals in the offseason are eligible to be traded. Now, I don't know if any of those players would be on the 76ers radar, but that's where other teams can start potentially getting involved. I mean, we've got teams like the Knicks, the Trailblazers, the Kings, the Lakers, as of recent, starting to talk about it. The Timberwolves. I mean, it's probably faster to say teams that aren't interested in Ben Simmons if I were to put a list about that. So, there's a lot of options. Obviously, the one that all Sixers fans wanted was Dame. The Trailblazers, according to Woj, and Zach Lowe actually have pretty much said he's off limits, which I guess I think you kind of expect that. I mean, you don't really trade Dame Lillard away unless he wants to be traded away. So you go to the drawing board and you say, what can the 76ers get for Ben Simmons that'll be worth the value? I know the Sixers have asked for, I think I saw it said as a quote unquote top 20 talent and some picks.
Well, so the deadline you mentioned is super important too, because I think it raises the possibility of this being a 3-team deal, which I think we could very well see here. Like you said, a large number of teams who are involved.
If the Lakers are involved, it's a 3-team deal. I promise you.
If the Lakers are involved, it's okay. So let's go through this list and get a couple of these out of the way. The Lakers are nonsense. Nothing is happening with the Lakers unless they're decided to suddenly trade LeBron James or trade Anthony Davis, and neither of those things are happening. I think that there's a part of them that would love to be off Russell Westbrook and already move on from that experiment? Sure. So I think the Sixers are remotely biting on that? Not even close. And so then what? We're trading Talon Horton-Tucker and Kendrick Nunn?
But if you can get another team involved and get Russ to go to that team, again, I don't know who does it, but it's the Lakers, man. They might do something crazy.
I don't think there's any planet where the Lakers are any remotely involved in this deal, and I think the Lakers have maybe the least enticing package out of any team in the NBA right now.
I agree.
So, I don't even think the Lakers are on the table. Now, every other team that's on this list, I think because a lot of them are the teams that we've known about. You know what I mean? Like Minnesota, Portland, Sacramento, even Cleveland to a lesser extent, Indiana. These are teams that have all indicated recently at the trade deadline that regardless of Ben Simmons, just outside of him, that they're looking to reshape their rosters. Indiana's talked about moving Miles Turner or Domantas Sabonis. Miles Turner himself has added a little bit of fire there. Malcolm Brogdon and Karis LeVert are on the table. Indiana definitely has players that I think could move the needle. Sacramento has players that can move the needle. Cleveland's a little more surprising just because I think they're playing so well right now, and I think there's such a feel-good story.
Yeah, why mess it up? But I mean, I don't know. They're from my understanding,
got hurt too. That's the other thing. Is if they were going to move on from Sexton, that would have made it a lot more interesting. But now with Sexton hurt, I think that takes that off the table.
And I would say too, I probably should confirm this, but I would assume they're not in the top of the league defensively. So someone like Ben Simmons could be a great addition to that from their standpoint.
I don't know. They're playing pretty well defensively, Justin. I think quite the opposite. I think they're near the top defensively. Evan Mobley's been a complete revelation on that end for them.
Look.
Ben Simmons would fit well in Cleveland. I think 100% he'd fit great in Cleveland, but I don't think they're going to move a Darius Garland. I don't think they're going to move. I mean, Evan Mobley doesn't fit with Joel Embiid, nor would they do that anyway. I don't get why Cleveland would make a move right now. Unless it's a smaller group of players, if it's like an Osman and a Markkanen and somebody like a Cedi Osman, or I said Cedi Osman, somebody like an Isaac Okoro, maybe, for example, then you get a deal in there, but it kind of doesn't make sense given the way that they're playing right now.
No, you're right. You're right. The Cavs, technically, from a defensive rating standpoint, they're the third best defense. So I was wrong on that. The only two teams better are Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors. And I wonder if I took that back into, let's say, the last 6 or 5 games, they're in the top 5. So yeah,
we're not going to make this a Cavs seg real quick, but the Cavs are really good. They're going to make the playoffs. I think they legitimately they're passing the 20-game sample size with flying colors. They look. I mean, like I said, Mobley is been just a revelation. He's such a stud already. But going back to the other teams, the ones that it's the ones that make the most sense that are still staying there. It's Minnesota. It's Portland. It's not Indy. Who am I blanking on? Sacramento. Those are the teams that I always have think had.
Did you say Knicks?
I didn't mention the Knicks now because I wanted to talk about the Knicks separate. I do think the Knicks now, because the Knicks and the Lakers are the late entry to this. I think the Lakers are a joke. They have no chance at all of getting on the Ben Simmons trade. And if they do, then we got completely fleeced, straight up. The Sixers got absolutely fleeced if the Lakers end up with Ben Simmons somehow. With the Knicks are a little more intriguing. Now that's the thing. The Knicks have players where I don't know what the deal looks like, and that's where it's. Julius Randle, his back slid a little bit this year. I think he overachieved last year. I still like Julius Randle, but that kind of felt like I wanted to see what it was going to look like.
Sure.
Plus, the money is already involved with Randle, and I don't know what that fit looks like with Embiid. Now, the Knicks have a good young core in the sense that I really like R.J. Barrett. I would love him in any deal. Emmanuel Quickley's there. He's given them good minutes this year. Obi Toppin has still a little bit of value potentially. And then they've got vets like Derrick Rose and Alec Burks. Both of those guys could come in and contribute right away. I mean, Alec Burks, that's a guy I'm still semi-surprised the Sixers let walk. I thought he was great for us a couple of years ago. He was one of the few success stories for us that Al Horford year. I'm way more intrigued by a Knicks deal than I am. But here's the thing. I don't think the Knicks are moving off RJ Barrett. And I don't really think the Sixers have a ton of interest in Julius Randle. And so at that point, I just don't think whatever the Knicks have to offer is going to beat some of those teams that we just mentioned. Now, I think the Knicks can play a little bit, where I don't think the Lakers can play. But I don't think the Knicks, unless they're moving RJ Barrett, are necessarily near the top of that list.
What do you feel? And I know there's I'll have to do more reading on this, and obviously the situation with Kemba Walker's not great. But would you consider something with Kemba?
Not for Ben Simmons, I wouldn't. If they want to give me Kemba Walker on a flyer, sure. But you're talking about a guy who's looked horrible and is completely out of their rotation at this point.
Yeah.
And I love Kemba Walker. Like off the court, this past decade, he's been one of my favorite players. Like improved basically every year. Kind of that hometown hero in Charlotte a little bit, gave them a lot of great years, got his big contract toward the end. I would definitely take a flyer on Kemba Walker. I think that makes a lot of sense if the Knicks want to move on from him and they decide, because it's obviously not working. Like he's out of Thibodeau's rotation at this point.
That's what I mean, yeah.
So I do think like he would probably like another shot as well. But for Ben Simmons, hell
no. But
he's out of the rotation.
Well, so from a Sixers standpoint, what do you want the point guard position or whoever comes in for Ben Simmons to look like? Because it feels like Thibault, at least from a defensive equivalent, is doing his job. I mean, he shut down Steph, who it looked awesome, and obviously there was some motivation behind it.
Steph. Like, I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but I'm firing it. That might have been the best defensive performance on Steph ever. Ever. Those 3-pointers never get blocked. I'm telling you, he was a menace.
Poor Steph, man. Steph, the best thing that could happen for him is for the media to stop talking about how close he is to breaking Ray Allen's record, because no team wants it to be them. So he's going to be getting the best defense, the hardest defense on him. The second, I saw a TikTok about this, the second he gets out of bed, somebody's going to be guarding him. Like seriously, the dude's not going to get a shot off without having to fight it. And I guarantee you, whoever is the game after he breaks or passes Ray Allen, he's going to have like 10 threes because they're not going to be guarding him as tight.
See, I'm surprised just because it's so inevitable at this point, and Steph has given so many teams buckets where it's like, does it really matter? Is it a foot? It feels like a footnote, honestly.
You don't, but like I was thinking the same thing last time recorded. Like, if you're the Sixers, you're like, we can't let him break this record against us. Like, we can't let him do it.
I don't think it's the end of the world, I guess, if he breaks the record against us. I don't really like. It's just one of those weird footnote things. You know what I mean?
If you're Thibault, and he hits a 3 over you to break Ray Allen's record, you know how many times that video is going to be put on ESPN and Bleacher Report and every freaking sports social media account. Like that is the motivation. It's going to be an NFT. They're going to sell that shit for millions of dollars. You know what I mean? Like
millions of Ethereum, not millions of dollars, millions of Ethereum.
Millions of ETH. That's how everyone calls it ETH these days. But that's why you don't want to. That's why you don't want it to be against you.
No, I get it, but at least with listen, if Steph Curry hits a 3-pointer on you, it's not like what are you going to do? He's hit 3-pointers on everyone.
I get it.
I get what you're talking about, and Thibault was everywhere. He made sure it wasn't happening, like I said.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, Steph is going to break this sooner than later. That's not really why we're talking about it. So the Sixers point guard position, I mean, Maxey obviously is the guy. I want Maxey getting as many minutes as possible. I mean, they're essentially playing him and Shake Milton. I don't love Shake Milton as a point guard, to be quite honest. I'd rather see him off ball a little more, and that's where I would like to see the Sixers get another guard. Like, I want them to give Maxey the keys. Like, I want him to be a huge part of this offense. I think his development this year has warranted that. But I don't really know. Like, I imagine they get a guard back in any trade in some fashion. Right. I mean, obviously, if CJ McCollum comes in or D'Angelo Russell comes in, then that situation kind of solves itself. But some sort of guard is going to be there. Even if it's Indy, like if Malcolm Brogdon is available, he would play point for us. They have options, put it that way. But yes, I do think they're going to get a point guard, which is kind of where we, started that out in any Ben Simmons trade. But the only team of that list that Shams came back to that, like I said, I wouldn't keep an eye on is the Lakers. I think the Knicks have a lower package than some of the others. I'd put Cleveland towards the bottom of that list just because I don't think Cleveland is in a rush to make a deal. Like, I just don't see the point right now.
Well,
Like I
could
get
there be? I think so there was somebody, and it was just people that were just putting together trades. But I ended up seeing essentially it was Pacers and I think the Knicks. It was a 3-team trade, and the Sixers got picks plus Miles Turner and oh my gosh, why is his name not Brogdon? Bogdanovich, I think.
Oh, Bogdanovich, interesting.
And so I was like, okay, I'm intrigued because he just got Player of the Week this week. So I was
the
like,
Sixers want Miles Turner though with Joel Embiid.
maybe just yeah, because you already have Drummond. I mean, Drummond's been playing great this year for us.
Drummond's defense has been weird. I mean some grow on Drummond. I'm not gonna lie. He's been way better than I anticipated. I don't want him anywhere near a starting lineup, but as the backup, he's doing a serviceable job. I don't think there's any planet where the Sixers should be looking at bringing another big in though. I think you gotta get wings. The Sixers need wings and they need a point guard.
I also, I want in my perfect world is I want at least one player who can come in and create his own shots.
Yes.
And honestly, if Tobias Harris was offered up in part of the trade, I wouldn't say no.
I wouldn't say no at all. I'm trying to move Tobias Harris, honestly, regardless. Like I would definitely move. Like, listen, there's deals out there that the Kings are hoping that trading like a Buddy Hield package with Marvin Bagley. Like, man, if the Sixers could send Tobias Harris out west and get those two back, like I'll take the flyer on Bagley and add Buddy Hield into the lineup. Like Tobias Harris just frustrates the hell out of me. And I think you see him frustrating the hell out of Doc Rivers. He's too hesitant on the 3-pointer. That's what's so frustrating is he'll settle and take a contested jumper. And Tobias Harris is a decent mid-range player. Like he's giving you numbers, but it's just like I want him confidently pulling the 3-pointer every single time. That's clearly the identity that they've gone with now, especially sans Ben Simmons. And if he's not going to step into that, I mean, Tobias Harris's contract is overpaid, but it's not like Tobias Harris is a bad player either, and there's only 2 years left on it. So if you're a team that has a lot of salary flexibility right now, you can maybe finesse a pick out of it too. Like that's the thing. I would even move that, attach it to a first just to get off that salary and then have a little more flexibility. But there's options. I would move Tobias Harris. Obviously, if they keep Tobias Harris, it's not going to be the end of the world for me. He's going to frustrate me sometimes. But again, it's not like Tobias Harris is a bad player. I'm frustrated with the ownership for giving him the contract. That was the point back in the day where it's just like, guys, what were you thinking? But, that's Captain Hindsight, neither here nor there. Either way, I think you and I, completely with the Homer hat on, will just be thrilled when this is over. That's personally one of my better bombs in a while. And I do think it's I think it happens within the next few weeks. We can see it, or not long after Christmas.
Part of me almost texted you because we were going to try to record this over the weekend. And when something came up, I almost sent the text and said, maybe it'll work in our favor and maybe Ben will get traded before we start the recording. But obviously I think at the earliest, we won't see anything until the 15th because of that free agent, deadline essentially.
No, don't worry. He'll get traded tomorrow as soon as we put it out. Don't worry.
Before I even have a chance to get into work to edit this to put it out, that'll be how it goes. That'd be great.
Just completely wipe out the episode.
Whole 20 minutes.
The first 23 minutes. Welcome everybody to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Well, you already kind of took mine, but hey, Detroit Pistons, how about a game of 3 of 3?
Hey, Vooch, what's up, bud?
Yeah, Vooch. I mean, you got to have fun with it, right? Like at that point, you just have to have a little bit of fun with it.
Well, it's just so absurd. I mean, what else is there to say? Like, they're at a point where, I mean, again, thankfully for their sake, this ended. They were looking at playing a game with 8 players at one point. Obviously, that's tremendously lopsided. Vooch had another good tweet earlier that cracked me up where when it was 9, Woj tweeted that 9 Bulls players were in Troy Brown when he did yesterday. He was the latest Bulls to go in, and he said 9 Bulls players are in protocols now, and Vooch said at least we'll have herd immunity for the rest of the season, which is true. I mean, I guess it's better to get the COVID outbreak out of the way now than it is
get it over with.
Come April, May, June, when it looks like if the Bulls keep this up, might be playing some meaningful basketball for the first time in a while. So got to have fun with it at least. And that's what we always try to do here on the podcast. Leave us a review on the iTunes, good or on the iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast.
You just made me think of this. I had a coworker come up to me and he said, have you tried one of these TikTok challenge videos yet? And I was just like, oh my God.
What year is this?
I was like, bro, are you all right? Like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Did you just get your mind scrambled like in Men in Black? You just
One
got
of
flashed?
these TikTok challenge videos. Like, could you sound older?
Yeah, look here, young whippersnapper.
Yeah. It's geez, dude. So
This could be a Werther's original then and call it a day.
I agree.
If you're not an Apple user, find the podcast anywhere that you can find podcasts: Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon Music. Anywhere you can find a podcast, again, you'll find us.
Yep, and we are on the YouTube. You can find us there. Just search Drive and Dish NBA. I believe we are at 26 subscribers. So if you want to be lucky number 27, feel free to hit us up and give our videos a watch. We try to put out clips of the episodes in specific topics so you can kind of get to the meat of whatever you want to hear us talking about. And then there's obviously the full episodes there as well. So feel free to give us a follow, and we'll put them up on YouTube.
Yeah, and if you're number 27, you'll be the Rudy Gobert of Drive and Dish sponsors. So that's fun times there. You'll be excellent on defense. And now a word from our sponsors. All right, support for this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in below the men. Good Lord, I can read. Men's below the waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels, and they just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. Yes, the 4.0. The upgraded trimmer includes a multi-function on-off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And hey, got extra lengths with it too, 1 to 4. It's got wireless charging as well, uses electromagnetic induction, which will help your battery length last longer. Come on, it's 2021. You want to make sure that you're charging wirelessly. You don't got to be looking for a cable on the go or looking to replace a cable. If you lose it by chance, it's always a pain. I know, in the past you've had to completely replace your trimmer. You don't got to do that with the Lawnmower 4.0. Of course, they got a lot of other great products on there as well. Boxers, T-shirts, all sorts of other stuff. But of course, you can get that. Christmas shopping is still going on. You got a couple days. You got 12 days as we're recording this podcast. So you're running out of time, but we can help you out. Use the promo code DISH20. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code DISH20 at manscaped.com. And again, unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Again, the promo code is DISH20. Get that free shipping. Get that 20% off.
DISH20. So I looked up Zion today, and I wanted to grab the first 2 headlines I saw. So these were the headlines. You Google the word Zion. The first 2 headlines you see as of December 13th, 2021 at 5:50 p.m. The first headline is Pelicans believe power forward can play this season after injury setback. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then the second headline is Pelicans reporters say Zion has been skipping rehab workouts, falling asleep in film sessions, and the franchise is too afraid of upsetting him. Oh boy.
Well, first off, I'm not going to lie. I thought you were going to throw me for a plot twist. And when you Googled Zion, like something about the new Matrix movie that's coming out was about to come up.
Yeah.
A lot of different directions that could go. I have no idea what to expect out of that either, but that's neither here nor there. So a couple things with Zion Williamson. Number one, he's now played less than games than Greg Oden did after 3 years, because it's funny. You were almost prophetic with this last week during Fallen and being like, hey, we're still kind of MIA. We don't know what it's going to look like, because it sure felt like we were close. It felt like we were maybe like right after Christmas, 2 to 3 weeks away from Zion Williamson getting on the floor. Zion Williamson is undeniably good when he's on the basketball court. Before the bubble, I think he was averaging, like 27 points a game, was an all-star, looked every bit of the number one undeniable prospect that we saw at Duke. The kid, if he can stay healthy, will have, in my opinion, a long multi-all-star year career. will be a franchise player, will be everything that the Pelicans hoped they would be when they took him at number one. We are at the point where we can panic, though. I mean, it reminds me of, I don't think he's being as just ridiculous with it the way Andrew Bynum was, but it reminds me of the Andrew Bynum situation, the year he played for the Sixers, where it's just every time it's about to happen, there's a setback and it gets taken away. Now,
hey, Pelicans fan, if you see Zion bowling,
it's
stop
over.
him immediately.
It's over. Like it's completely done at that point. There's no chance. It stinks. There's no way around it. It's extremely disappointing. It's for the Pelicans, who are already having an awful season in a year where they hoped everybody would be healthy and they'd be maybe making a playoff run. Instead, they're sitting at 8 wins and kind of going nowhere fast. I mean, yeah, we've got 85 games out of Zion Williamson right now. We've got 87 missed games. Like, it's valid. It's a concern. I'm worried about the foot injury. I'm worried about his multitude of other injuries. The most important thing in professional sports is availability.
Yep.
And Zion Williamson hasn't been available. There's been reported tension behind the scenes we've heard in the past between his camp and David Griffin's camp. Well, so I'm sure that's got to be frustrating as well, but I'm sure everybody's frustrated. That's the thing at this point.
And if there's anything to this Pelicans reporter saying that he's skipping rehab workouts and falling asleep during film sessions, it's like, bro, those are literally the only two things they need you to be doing for this franchise, is getting healthy and understanding the film.
I mean, Zach Lowe,
like, and you can't even do that.
I don't want to speculate on his weight too much, but I mean, Zach Lowe, who is somebody that obviously is credible, said that Zion was reported in at like 330 pounds. You can't play NBA basketball at that weight. Like, there's just no way around it. On top of it being a foot injury, so where's all that extra weight going? Where's that pressure going? I hate that it's like this. I'm so disappointed for Pelicans fans. This is obviously the worst case scenario. I mean, there is no timetable for his return right now. That is, I mean, because he had just ramped up to really 4-on-4 and 5-on-5 full basketball activities. Like, he wasn't even back to, like, you know, he was just starting to go through practice. We weren't even fully close to a game yet. We were still weeks off. And again, now we're dealing with the rehab of this foot injury. I do think you need to be precautious. And I think this is a situation where, look, if he's going to heal, you got to do it right. He's been too precarious at this point. And there are other players who have missed a ton of games early on, Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, namely, who have gone on to, you know, have great NBA careers and have stuck around a long time and kind of reached their potential and been what you hoped they would be. We obviously hope Zion can be that, but it would be irresponsible for us to come on this podcast now and say that, yeah, there are real worries with Zion Williamson. Like, there's no sugarcoating it anymore. Like, this was the worst case scenario that you basically could hear in this, you know, in this update from the Pelicans.
Well, and the whole being too afraid to upset him, like, I get not wanting to lose the All-Star, but if he doesn't have a good work ethic or whatever it might be, there's got to be someone there that gives him that tough love to, like, be like, yo, wake the hell up. Like, what are you doing? You know, you're supposed to be the guy that comes in here and changes the franchise that was slowly sliding down because Anthony Davis left. Like, you are the next guy. You are the person that's supposed to save this, and you can't even stay awake during a film session.
Yeah,
like, come on.
It's the little things, and I mean that matters. And here's the thing, like, the sad part for New Orleans is, like, you got to worry about upsetting him. But if he's unhealthy, or if he's not healthy and unable to play, it's like, what are you worried about?
Not even that. If you start showing him some favoritism, like, oh yeah, don't worry about going to your rehab workouts. Oh yeah, it's fine. You can take a nap during film sessions. The other players in the locker room are going to go, well, what the hell? We don't get that kind of treatment. And then you're going to lose the locker room and he's not going to be welcome there. And then the team's chemistry is all messed up and you might as well not be playing at that point.
100%. I mean, with Zion Williamson, you're in a situation where, if he's continually and perpetually injured, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what a situation looks like where, who gives him that max contract? You know what I mean? Who gives him I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I don't know what I do if I'm the Pelicans going forward. I mean, I pretty much just accept that he's not playing this year. I think you try to shut it down. You let him recover as much as he can. You hope that he goes through a full off season of working out, and you try to get him back for next year. Like, they're already going to have too much climbing to do anyway, essentially, which sounds crazy in the Western Conference. But I mean, this is a team that's at the bottom right now. They've lost 3 more games than Houston and OKC. I mean, they're only 3 wins technically behind Sacramento right now, but they've got more games played. They're 4 games back. So I guess it's not over, but you have to play the long-term game, unfortunately. And it's a loss for everybody. If I'm Zion, though, and I'm in his camp, like, yeah, I'm trying to get him healthy, because forget the Pelicans. Like, you're worried about going to a bigger market. You're not going to go to a bigger market if you can't even stay on the court and get a contract. Like, who's going to? His potential is there to max him. Like I said, he is undeniably good when he's on the basketball court, but he isn't really on the basketball court a lot right now. And
he's played 85 out of possible 183 games, and the injury or the setback apparently is just persistent soreness in his right foot. So, I'm not a doctor. I don't know necessarily what that means, but obviously you don't want soreness. So we'll see where it goes. It's one of those things where at this point I'm like, look, you can't baby him anymore. You got to treat him like everyone else of the players. Like, if he's falling asleep during film sessions, if he's not going to workouts or rehab workouts, like, you got to do something, or you're going to lose the entire locker room. And at that point, he's not even on the court and he's messing up the team. So what are we doing? That's you got to step up. And I get it. You don't, as the Pelicans, like, you don't want to lose another star by demanding their way out. But at this point, the dude's not even showing you the respect that he even cares about the team, because he's fallen asleep during the film sessions, according to this reporter. It may not be true, but where there's smoke, there's fire, in my opinion. And so it's probably something to it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
No. I don't know.
All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. So for balling for me this week, I've got Kevin Durant, 51 points in the Nets' victory over the Pistons on Sunday. He scored at least 10 points in all 4 quarters. Harden was out, so obviously, he'd take on a little bit more of that load. But that is the high right now for the NBA this season. He passed his former teammate, Steph Curry, there. We'll see how long it holds.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he's been playing really well right now. I think in terms of the MVP, I was looking at the MVP ladder. Curry was ahead of him, but he was number 2. And then I think it was like Giannis and Jokic. And who was number 4 or number 5? I forget who number 5, but it took me, I was surprised because LeBron wasn't on the list, obviously. And I feel like that's probably the first time, maybe in his career, other than injury years, that he isn't on an MVP list, at least in the top 10, you know?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I do think that'll change for what it's worth.
We'll see, yeah.
I mean, because he's been playing the best for them. So you imagine that'll change. But yeah, it's crazy.
Well, again, it goes back to that debate. If LeBron's not on the Lakers, what's their record?
Bad. real bad, given the way that they're playing.
It's already not that great. So, but either way, that's
wait. So he's not in top 10, or he's not in top 5.
He wasn't top 10. Hold on, it was on NBA.com. I was actually going to put it as one of my ball-ins because I thought it was interesting, or fall-ins, depending on how it was going to rank out. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Bonus. Oh, maybe it's not here anymore. Where'd it go? Oh, LeBron was named Player of the Week, though. So there you go with that.
Yeah.
No, where'd it go? Oh, they added a bunch because the games are on right now. So I think it must have. Oh, here it is. Gobert. Top 5. Oh, come on, load up. So it's Curry, number 1. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's surprised. 27.5 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Kevin Durant, 28 points per game. Giannis at number 3. Jokic at number 4 for the Nuggets. Chris Paul, number 5. Which makes sense. They're one of the top teams. Rudy Gobert, number 6. Trae Young, number 7. Zach LaVine, number 8. DeMar DeRozan, number 9. So there you go, teammates. And then number 10, Jimmy.
Okay.
No Embiid.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid's missed time. That's the thing, and that's borderline. The only reason I'm surprised Jimmy Butler's on that list is because Jimmy's missed time recently too. But I mean, he was cooping before he got hurt.
And what's crazy is so that's the top 10, right? And then NBA.com goes, and 5 more listed alphabetically. So this is just ones that have gotten nods, not necessarily in any order. LaMelo Ball, Luka, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell. So even if you go by that, LeBron's not even in the top 15.
I think Jokic should be higher. I'm just going to put that out there. Him being at 4 feels ridiculous given all the injuries they've had and how he's kept Denver afloat. His on-off numbers are outrageous.
Him and Giannis are the only 2 players in the NBA averaging 25 plus points and 10 plus rebounds and at least 5 assists per game.
I didn't give them a nod on this list, but the Jazz are chugging too right now. They've won 7 straight, so that's why Rudy's getting some love there. So that's pretty cool.
That was kind of the focus of this article, at least, was Rudy's angle and how he's rising up it.
Yeah, so he's definitely climbing there. Who's balling for you this week?
So balling for me is going to be Fred VanVleet of the Raptors. He, according to, I believe this was Shams that put this out. Fred VanVleet and the University of Toronto are creating the Fred VanVleet Scholarship. It's a new award to support Black or Indigenous students through their 4-year undergraduate degree program, whatever they decide to do. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, definitely cool there. Always pro-education. Never really going to argue with that. Shout out to Fred VanVleet for giving back. Always like to see some of that.
And while we're on the Raptors, one of the other stories that was kind of following the Raptors this year, again, is a COVID situation. Their super fan who is at literally every single game. I was trying to find it real quick, but it wasn't popping up in time. But he missed a game because of COVID-19 the other night. And it was his first game in like some 1,000 games. He put out this really like motivational thing. Like, I guess his friend took the tickets to go or something. So he's like, be nice to my friend because you're going to notice it's not me.
That's right. So what have you done?
Who are you? Yeah.
Who are you people? All right. Falling for me this week, I've got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who went up to just absolutely throw down in this game against Utah. He cocked it back and promptly got stuffed by the side of the backboard, which I didn't really think was possible. But he took off driving baseline, and I'm telling you, all the way back, had it loaded up, and boom, just right into the side of the backboard. And the worst part is he ended up finishing the night with 0 points. So on top of that, there was some more injury. He would have at least had a bucket if that went down.
At least get 1 point or something off of it. Oh, that sucks.
The Wizards sliding too. They're lost 5 of their last 7. They're down to 7 in the East, so they're still hanging around. Their defense has been really bad. They're ranked, I think they're 29th in the league right now in defense, which is not great, to say the least.
Hold on, I have the defense up because I was just looking at the Knicks.
I know defense. Portland's last, so
let's see. Oh, I was deep in some Knicks stats. Oh man, I was real deep. Yeah, so worst would be the Hornets. Wizards 26th. Yeah. 26th. Okay. Knicks are 27th, Orlando Magic 28th, Thunder 29th. I don't think anybody's surprised by that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, who's falling for you this week?
Falling for me is another dunk situation. We are traveling all the way down to Australia. I think that was a good accent.
Is that how they wanted that accent? Is that what they sound like?
We got our Vegemite in Australia. Former Cavs point guard Matthew Dellavedova. I still can't say his name. Dellavedova. I still can't say it, dude. Which is so funny because I feel like we talked about him so much, but there was a big brawl after he got absolutely posterized. And his teammates obviously came to his defense, but it looked like it almost got close to Mouth in the Palace type situation. Like they were getting pushed into the stands. Things were getting real heated. So also Delly's 31. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Delly. Well, yeah, because we talked about him so long ago. I mean, that's the thing. Geez, oh man, that was because that was 2015. Yeah, that was 2015. Yeah. This ended up being a fight in the NBL. I'm trying to figure out the gentleman's name.
Who dunked? Yeah, hold on.
Oh, Mitch Creek. Mitch Creek is the guy who dunked on him in this game. absolutely threw down
Oh,
on
yeah.
Dellavedova.
And, like, kind of flexed a little bit, but as he was flexing, Delly's teammate just didn't stop running, so he just kinda, like, took him out.
Oh, so he was running on purpose. So it was Mason Peatling, who plays for Melbourne United.
Yes.
Delhi, or what was I going to say? The guy who did the dunk was Mitch Creek. He plays for
Yep.
Southeast Melbourne Phoenix.
Mhm.
So my bad. I'm learning some of these teams on the fly.
I don't know him.
Well, so Delhi gets thrown out, and this is just, I mean, that's the definition of a poster. Like, he just absolutely, like, put Delhi in a body bag in
Yeah.
transition, had him laid out on the floor, and his teammate, like, he had just stopped running. Delhi's teammate, like, threw the elbow and knocked him
Yeah.
over, which, of course, like, I mean, he gave him a good hard check. Like, Creek went flying after that.
And
Rightfully
he was
got
like,
up. His teammates wanted to start fighting because it's like, yeah, I'd be
yeah.
like, what are you doing? This against basketball ethics. Like, I'm sorry your boy just got posterized. Like, I get sticking up for your teammate, but like,
Mhm.
your teammate didn't get punched or anything like that. He just got embarrassed a little bit. Like, come on, man. I get like wanting to get even, but that ain't the way to do it. Like, let that man enjoy his moment. Don't start a fight over it.
Well, if you ever have time, go back and watch the video, and when he gets hit by the elbow, he falls back. He's, like, on his back, and you see him, like, he puts his hand on his head, like, he's obviously frustrated trying to calm himself down from doing anything stupid, and there's, like, a moment where you see him just, like, the rage boils over, and he, like, throws his hand down, and he jumps up and just, like, books it at the, like, pile of people that are now pushing and shoving each other, and you're like, "Oh, he tried to fight his anger there, but it didn't work, and now he's going at it." So,
Yeah. Shout out to our guy Andrew Morgan too. Speaking of Australia, we talked on Basketball Reference a couple weeks ago about how like players just have silly nicknames, and
yeah.
one that I brought up was, who on earth has ever called LeBron James the L Train? Andrew tweeted me a clip, so go check my Twitter at Refuse to Lose.
They really?
From Cavs Bucks 12 years ago during LeBron's first run, where he scored, I believe it was 16 points in 12 minutes. On this clip right here. Let me pull this up to make sure. It was 16 points in 2 minutes, excuse me. And they called him the L Train when he got out on a fast break and he threw it down. There you go. I had no idea. And that was an incredible memory to just pull that up because I would not have seen that clip in a long, long time.
No, I get that's probably like one of the only times I've ever used it, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, quite literally. So Jeremy Grant is going to miss 6 weeks for the Pistons, who, as of recording this episode, are the worst team in the NBA at 4-22. Jeremy Grant is going to miss 6 weeks. He's got a UCL sprain in his right thumb. I think it goes without saying that this is devastating for a team that's not that good anyway and is now losing their best player. This is on top of them also losing Kelly Olynyk. The good news is that it means you get plenty more Cade Cunningham, which is something that I think Pistons fans are certainly interested in. Yeah, what a nightmare. This is it's going to get ugly, to put it bluntly, and it's a shame because if they were playing the shorthanded Bulls, I would have thought they would have had a chance to actually win that game. But not exact. It's going to be rooting for development here for the Pistons, no doubt about that.
For sure, and it's one of those things, the Jeremy Grant thing really sucks because he's on my fantasy team, and you are the only team that's doing better than me, so I need all my players available. But, yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. I think also from the standpoint that, I mean, maybe they could have been in the mix with potential trade stuff with Ben Simmons if Jeremy Grant was healthy. You never know.
Their team, yeah. My bad. The Lakers are among the teams that have shown interest, but like, yeah, there are definitely teams who would be very, very interested in trading for Jeremy Grant.
I mean, if the Pistons wanted to go that way, they may not have. They may have just wanted to let it keep riding out, and if that's the case, that's fine. But you wonder. I was reading if he does come back in 6 weeks from the injury, he'd be coming back January 21st. So we'd only have a short amount of time before the NBA trade deadline, which is 3 weeks later, February 10th. So maybe there's still something there if they decide to go that way. Maybe there's something they see while Jeremy Grant's out that they go, why don't we just have a rest of the year ride out like this? The record's obviously not going to be that great, but our young guys get the experience, like you were saying. Cade Cunningham goes out and gets to play a little bit more. In his last 6 games, he's been averaging 20.8 points per game, 45% from the floor, 46 from 3, hitting 81% of his free throws. Like, I don't know how much more you want from a rookie in terms of like raw stat numbers like that. Like that's if you're getting that out of your rookie, that's good.
No, it'd be great. It looks like I think you have to be thrilled about that. It looks like the number one pick, without a doubt. I think that's. I mean, again, it just cracks me up because there's always people who sell low on rookies right away, and like there isn't some adjustment period, and like Cade Cunningham isn't 20 years old playing in the NBA right now.
He's got 20 games in his career, like maybe 21 as of the time you listen to this, but still.
Yeah, no, 21 games as of recording this, but yeah, the last 5 have just been very, very good. He's doing it efficiently as well. That's the thing. I mean, he's taking a lot of attempts. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he had a game with
the turnovers,
OKC where he had 24. He had 20 against Washington, 17 and 18 the last few. But he looks good. He looks efficient. Jeremy Grant with the Blazers and the Lakers were the 2 teams in that Athletic article that were interested in trading for him. I mean, that makes a ton of sense from the Blazers as well. Jeremy Grant's scoring 20 this season. He's knocking down 41% of his shots. A lot of teams would have interest in Jeremy Grant if they decide to go that way. It's just tough for me with the Pistons right now. Like they're in such a bleak spot. Like there's just such a lack of talent there at this point.
But I think
the Cade Cunningham experience is going to be nice, but I mean, we're looking at I guess if you're excited about Killian Hayes minutes, if you're excited about Isaiah Stewart minutes, besides that, it gets rough really fast.
So, Hall of Fame guard Dave Bing, he brought up that he felt Cade Cunningham is not a guy you build your team around. He says he's all-star caliber, but he's not a guy you build your team around. If you want to go see the full quote, you can look it up. Do you agree with that? Again, we're 20 games in. So I took it as kind of like an old head that is well-respected from the Pistons community coming out and just giving the rookie a little more motivation, giving him something else, giving him that MJ thing that he can keep in his head to like motivate him to keep going a little bit more.
You're such a better person than I am in terms of giving people the benefit of the doubt and just trying to find like the ways that this may have been thinking. I think this is a stupid ass statement by Dave Bing. Like, what the hell does that mean? That he's not a player you build around? It's been 21 games of this guy. What? Because he didn't come out and light the league on fire right away and he struggled in his first couple of games? Like, newsflash, this Detroit team isn't very good. So there's already going to be a more difficult learning curve as there is, and with him having to take on more of that responsibility, he's done it pretty admirably the last few games. Like, it's just a weird timing for me when he's playing the best basketball of his young career, when he's had basically the entire like pressure of the franchise put on him right away.
He didn't have a Michael Carter Williams moment.
Well, hey, listen, that moment when he got Michael Carter Williams the Rookie of the Year, that was such a great moment when he took out the big 3 like that. But
I know.
No, I don't get it. Like, to me, it's weird. It's like everyone in Detroit was so excited for this pick. Like, it's such a franchise-changing moment, potentially. If Cade Cunningham looks to be as good as we think he's going to be. And also, newsflash, they're probably going to be in the conversation for the number 1 pick overall again this year. So you're very close to maybe giving him a running mate here sooner than later. Like, just enjoy it. Like, he's 20 years old. Like, what are we talking about? He's not a guy to build around. I don't even have sample sizes on individual NBA teams usually until 20 games into the season. You want to have a full sample size on an entire guy's career 20 games into the season when he's 20 years old? How many damn times can I work 20 into the sentence? It's really crazy. Like, Dave Bing, again, Detroit legend, but just like, what are you doing, man?
Well, it's like, let's go look at Mikal Bridges. Like, what did we think about him in his first 20 games? Did we have opinion? Like, did we think it was going to be great, or do we think it was going to be where it is now for the Suns? Like, do we know? No. I don't know.
Oh, you thought the potential was there, but you didn't think it was going to be that. But yeah, I mean, the bummer is in the short term is that it's just tough. It's tough slugging. Orlando has one more win with them right now. Again, they have a couple of players. Like, Killian Hayes is somebody to watch. Saddiq Bey hasn't been great offensively at all. I mean, his numbers are way down in terms of 3-point percentage and just overall as well. The defense has still been there, but again, we're talking about a role guy essentially. Um, that's really it. Like they need bigs. Like maybe you have one with Isaiah Stewart, but this is such an incomplete roster at this point that it's hard for me to take any big conclusions away other than the Pistons should just be an accumulating talent mode.
Yep. I think it's very much that. You just see what other guys, as well as Cade Cunningham, are worth keeping around and worth a roster spot for next year, and you find your biggest weakness, and your pick's probably going to be the top 4, top 5, whatever it ends up being, the 3rd pick, the 4th pick, whatever. You pick a player of need, the position you need the most. You get the best player at that position in the draft, and then you let Cade Cunningham and that person grow together and have a great career together.
Yeah, so the Pistons have won 4 as of recording this. Their wins are against Orlando, against Houston, against Toronto, and against Indiana. They've lost 12 straight. The closest they were to winning their last game was their closest one recently was against Washington a couple weeks ago on the 8th, or a couple days ago, I should say. They lost by 3 in overtime. The schedule, again, they don't have to play Chicago. Their next game is they have Indy, Houston, Miami, New York, and then Miami again. There's a couple games in there. If they're going to, you could definitely beat Indy. They've already beat them once this season. You could definitely beat Houston. I'm certainly not calling worst team ever shots after the way that Houston turned out when I called that shot earlier. Yeah. But it's rough. I think they're going to just barely get into double digits. Like this is going to be one of those seasons for the Pistons. The good news is if Cade Cunningham develops, if some of your younger guys stick and look like they could be a part of the rotation, and you get another high lottery pick, you could be onto the core here sooner than later. It takes a couple years. Like the Pistons remind me right now of what Cleveland, I think, was maybe 2 years ago, where it's like you have one for sure good one. At the time, it was Sexton. I don't think Garland was really in the mix like that yet. I loved that pick for them even back in the day. It's just see what you got, see who sticks, see who's around. And the good news with Detroit is, so they've dealt with injuries, like I said, namely Jeremy Grant now and Kelly Olynyk, who haven't really played most of the year. But it's not like in the way with Orlando, who's the other team that's kind of that bad too, where they're soul crushing in the sense, because like Orlando, for example, Jonathan Isaac's not on the floor. Markelle Fultz hasn't played. Even with him being close to coming back, now, namely Jalen Suggs isn't playing. Like, you're not getting to see the guys you want to see develop. Like, you're just kind of getting the stink part without the positives that you can at least take out of it.
You would just want to see them play. Yeah.
Detroit, at least you got Cade on the floor. Like that, if nothing else, just root for Cade Cunningham's development, which is something that I think a lot of Pistons fans knew they were doing anyway.
And so that's why I don't think I don't think a Pistons fan realistically is like, oh man, there goes our chances to make the playoffs.
I'll say this, I'm probably the most excited I've been about the Pistons future and the Pistons outlook than have been probably our entire time recording this podcast. But even longer than that, I go back to that decade in the 2000s. Obviously they were the kings of the East for quite a while, winning the title in 2005, but it's just been kind of mediocre since then. A couple 8 seeds, a couple of good players here and there. But, it's been largely hit or miss. Now I think, they're in a situation where they can build something and, hopefully in their case, get back to, the Pistons teams that we saw in the 90s and then in the early 2000s where they were competitively a force for quite a while. They got that brand new arena. So got to make some memories in it. And hopefully Cade Cunningham is the start to that. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. We appreciate you guys as always. Shout out to our sponsors, Manscaped. Use the promo code DISH20. You'll get 20% off site-wide and free shipping just in time for Christmas. Make it nice and simple. Get those last-minute gifts in your life. You need stocking stuffers. They got those too. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Amazon Music, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and you can find the video version of the podcast, youtube.com. Just search Drive and Dish NBA, and we'll be there.